Retrofit Tool webinar. I hope everyone is doing great and excited about this webinar. I'm Ruchi Shah, the Energy Program Associate at Stewards of Affordable Housing for Future, also called as SAFE. And we have with us Rebecca Shaw, the Senior Vice President of Energy at SAFE, and Ben Bunker from ICF, who will be helping us managing this webinar. We'll be starting in just a second. We are waiting for a few more attendees to join, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so let's get started. I want to thank everyone again for being with us today. Before moving forward, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. Okay, so here we have the housekeeping items. On the right side of your screen, I hope everyone can see the webinar toolbar, and you can expand or collapse it at any time. Also, you can listen to us by using your telephone by clicking on the Use Telephone button, or you can listen to us via your computer speakers by clicking on the Use Mic and Speakers button. Throughout the webinar, everyone will be on the mute, but you can type in your questions anytime, and we'll answer them at the end. So now let's look at the agenda for today. We'll be giving a brief tool background, talking about why the tool was built. We'll be looking at the workflow. It's also interesting that we are going to do a live demo for the tool that we had run at a multifamily property. We'll be looking at very interesting case studies, and at the end we'll have time for Q&A.
So now that you have a sense of where we're going, we'd like to know who is on the phone with us. We're going to open up our first poll of the day and give about 30 seconds to take in responses. So just let us know what sector you primarily work in. And if you are indicating you're in another sector, go ahead and leave us a comment so we have a sense of who all is on the phone. And while you're answering that question, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. Stewards of Affordable Housing for the Future, or SAFE, is a collaborative of 11 large nonprofit owners and operators of affordable housing with about 115,000 units across the country. We work collaboratively on a number of topic areas, starting since we were founded in 2004. And since about 2007, have been working on energy and water conservation. So we're going to go ahead, and hopefully you've all had a chance to respond. We'll see kind of what the poll results look like. All right, so we have a really good mix on the call today. You can see that we've got both multifamily housing people, energy efficiency people, policy and advocacy people, and I'm going to be really curious about who all our other people on the phone are. So given your backgrounds, many of you may have encountered some of these scenarios. Maybe you have an older multifamily building with inefficient systems, or you've seen high or rising utility costs in a property. Maybe you have a little piece of funding for energy efficiency measures and want to know what to do. Or you've benchmarked a property and know that it's a poor performer and want to improve your benchmarking score. Well, we at SAFE have encountered all of these scenarios, and the primary place where we go to take some next steps is to get an energy audit. But in our energy audits, we've actually encountered something that we call the Goldilocks effect, where in some cases we hire an energy company, a modeling firm perhaps, to give us a detailed analysis of our building, but what we get is something maybe a little bit overblown for the real needs of some of our fairly simple buildings. Or on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes we get back an audit and say, this audit is too vague. You know, we have some recommendations, but don't necessarily feel like we have enough information to make good decisions. So we tend to go for those, you know, overkill audits rather than the too light audits. But the real problem with that is they're very expensive. And this is affordable housing we're working on. They really can't always afford to pay for expensive audits. And that was our rationale for going and developing the EZ Retrofit tool that you'll hear about today, which is a way of getting an energy audit for your building that conveniently is free. So to give a quick overview, EZ Retrofit is based in Excel. Any computer that runs Excel can run the EZ Retrofit tool, with one exception. And we developed this tool under HUD's Energy Innovation Fund, working with ICF International. We released the first version of the tool last June, and now the tool we'll be demoing today is version 2.0 of our EZ Retrofit tool. The tool targets low and mid-rise properties and can be in any geographic area in the U.S. We have all of the different climate zones for the U.S. covered. It's meant to be run by property owners themselves or the sustainability personnel, or maintenance staff can help collect the data for this. And we found some energy auditors also had an interest in using this tool to get some of the information that's really of interest to property owners. And next, I'm going to turn it back to Ruchi to talk a little more in detail about the tool's features and functions.
Thanks, Rebecca, for the excellent overview. Let's go a little deeper in the tool. I want to talk about the two complementary pathways that the tool offers. It's called an easy path and an advanced path. And both of these pathways helps you to identify energy and water conservation measures at your property. And here are the three criteria to keep in mind while selecting the pathway. First is user interface. So Easy Path guides you through a series of pop-up screens, while Advanced Path has a more traditional Excel look and feel. If you're an Excel expert, you might want to use Advanced Path. We'll look at each of them pretty soon. The second is building systems. So if you have limited data about your building systems, or your buildings are fairly simple, like one heating system and one cooling system, you might want to go for Easy Path. But if you're a data expert again and have good data at hand for all your building systems and have multiple building systems like heating and cooling, then you would want to go for Advanced Path. In terms of features, Easy Path provides an easy way for you to enter the minimum kind of data for all the systems and appliances. And it's, again, through those pop-up screens. And for the rest of the part, the tool makes calculations based on the common systems found in multifamily. While Advanced Path is more robust and allows you to override assumptions, the default assumptions that the tool is using, you can change them. You can update costs if you have your own information about your own costs, or you can enter your new systems. But if you're a first-time user, definitely go for Easy Path. Now let's look at exactly how the tool works and what are the key steps. So irrespective of the path you choose, be it Easy Path or Advanced Path, the workflow is pretty much the same. The first step is benchmarking. Here you need to input basic information about your building characteristics and ideally whole building utility data. Based on this information, the tool will calculate two key metrics, that is energy use and water use intensity, and it will also compare this to an average building, similar kind of building for that area. The second step is entering systems data. This is really a critical step in the tool. The tool is very comprehensive and it looks at 11 categories. So you have to input data for all these 11 categories. They are envelope, HVAC, that is your heating and cooling systems, domestic hot water, clothes washers, kitchen appliances, lighting, motors and controls, air and duct sealing, water fixtures, and toilets. As you can see, it's really comprehensive, but don't be afraid of it. The last step is results. So now we have done all the hard work, and you can view the results. The tool would give you specific recommendations for energy and water conservation measures, very specific to your building. The results will also have estimates for savings, costs, that is installation costs, utility costs, payback period, useful life, and also you can see all of them visually via graphs. And last, which is really a key and a powerful tool feature, is that you can refine all of those results. So once you have the results and you want to change several things such as override assumptions, costs, or enter new systems, you can do that and then view the new results. Now you must be wondering, the tool is really complex and it asks for a ton of data, and how do I get that? So to simplify the process, we have developed a standard EZ Retrofit checklist. And this checklist is embedded in the tool itself, as well as it can be downloaded from SAFE's website. Let's quickly take a look at how the checklist looks like. Here is the checklist. It's in a Word document. You can easily print it and take it with you when you are collecting data. So here are the three kind of data sources that are grouped together you would want to look at while collecting your data. That is, if you have purchasing records, or the best source is basically visual inspection. Most of the things you can learn from your site visit. And here is the detailed checklist. So you can see there are this data fields broken down by each of those 11 categories. And these are exactly same questions as you will see in the tool. So if you have this checklist filled out really well, entering all the data in tool is really easy and will save a lot of time for you. Now let's get back to the screen and look at the tool. So
So before we jump into the tool, we'd like to open our second poll of the day. So we are going to be asking you about your familiarity with the EZ Retrofit tool. Is this maybe the first time you're hearing about it, or since the tool has been open for a year, have you maybe seen it before at a presentation, download it and played around with it a little but not really used it on a building? Or are you one of our expert users who has already completely assessed a building using the EZ Retrofit tool? So we're going to give about a 30-second window, once again, to try to find out what the experience level is with the tool. All right. So it looks like we do have a number of primarily new users who are learning about the tool today. So the detailed walkthrough of the tool should be very helpful.
Okay, so the tool can be downloaded from SAFE's website. We have posted the latest version there. Also on the website, we have several tool resources to help you with. There's a detailed user guide, which is really comprehensive and talks about each and every step in detail. There's the EZ Retrofit checklist that we just reviewed. There's a frequently asked questions document. There's a case study. It's the same case study that we'll be talking about in the webinar. And there is the webinar recording for the version 1.0 as well. And if you like the tool, you want to learn more about the tool, definitely sign up. For today's webinar, I'm going to use a pre-populated tool. I'd run this tool at a property called Happy Hill Apartments. Definitely that's not the name, but everyone on the property was really happy. So it's a multifamily property, has 154 units, a combination of 1 and 2 bedrooms. I'm going to now seriously take you to the actual tool. So once you download the tool and open it, this is the first welcome screen that you will see. And here again, I want to say, as Rebecca had previously mentioned, it runs on Excel, but you need to enable your macros to be able to run it actually. And I'm reiterating the fact that the tool runs on Windows operating system and not on Mac. So this is the welcome screen. It talks about 2 pathways that I just described. There is the EZ Retrofit checklist button, so you can view the checklist via this button as well. For now, let's start with EZ Paths. I'm going to click on that. And this is the first welcome screen for the EZ Path. It again talks about the 11 systems that we'll be looking at and has a few navigation tips. I'll be talking about each and everything in the next second. So this is the first screen called the general characteristics screen. If you remember the benchmarking step, the first step, so we are in that area right now. Here you'll be entering basic information about your property, its location, zip code, number of floors, square footage. I definitely understand that's a tough one. So if you are wondering how to measure square footage of condition area, then you see these buttons at the top, and you can click on how do I do it. So if you click on that one, it will take you to that section of the user guide where you'll have detailed guidance about how to do it. Also, if you're wondering why the tool is asking for this information, you can click on Did You Know button, and it will tell you how the tool is processing this information. There are a few more general questions on this screen. So for now, let's go to the actual benchmarking screen. Here, again, you will be entering a few more basic questions, but the key for this screen is utility data. Now, in this tool, you can enter utility data by month, or you can enter an annual number. It's completely up to you. It doesn't affect tool's calculations. Also, the tool can be run without entering the utility data, but I don't recommend it because the results won't be as specific to your building, and the tool will not be calibrated accurately. For this building, the owner was paying for tenant electricity and whole building, the owner was paying for common area electric and whole building gas and water, and the tenants were just paying for electric. So that's how I've entered annual numbers for those utilities. The ones where you're not paying or you're not using, like oil, you can enter 0 in those fields. So I'm excited to look at the benchmarking results. So for this building, as you can see, there are 2 metrics the tool has calculated. That's the site energy use and water use. In the bold, there is a big message that basically says this building is a good candidate for significant upgrades, and so you should move further and find out. But say if your building was really fairly efficient compared to the similar buildings in that area, then the message would say otherwise. So let's go to the envelope screen. This is kind of the first screen for those 11 categories that I had described. Here I want to mention a key thing on the right. You can see the navigation panel. When you are running the tool, you would want to enter data in the same order as shown in the navigation panel, because order really matters for this tool. The tool kind of draws data and the calculations from previous tools for each of the categories. But for the webinar purposes, I'm not going through each and every tool, but we'll be showing you some of the major and kind of complicated screens. So let's look at the heating and cooling screen. Also, I want to mention here the tool is running complex calculations on the back end. So it might take a few seconds. Here we have the screen, but it might take a few seconds to load the screen. So here is the heating and cooling system screen, and the best way to understand the screen is to going back to our presentation and see the slide for that one. I've taken out this section from the actual checklist and then written the responses against those questions. So this is how the heating and cooling screen looks like even in the tool. And for each of the screens, the tool will ask kind of basic questions about who pays the bills for that system, what kind of system it is, the age of the system, the quantity and capacity, because this is really important for the tool in terms of predicting savings and doing complex calculations. So at this building, let's look at just one system for now. As I said, owner pays for common area heating. The heating system, and I'm reading those from the tabs marked in orange. The heating system here, they have individual systems. They have baseboard electric resistance heaters throughout the common areas. Here I've selected the age. And all of these, again, in the tool, it's in a drop-down format. I'll just show that in a second. Here is the system capacity. Make sure you enter the right unit and the right quantity. So let's go back to the tool to see if they actually match. So here you can see the questions are exactly the same as we just saw. Now, say if you have multiple heating and cooling systems, you would click on Add Another Cooling System. So you can see there are other systems entered here. Now, again, I said order matters. So ideally, when you are running the tool, you would click on the next measure category called Domestic Hot Water. But for now, I'm going to go to the clothes washer category. So in this building, they have a central laundry facility. They do not have washers in apartments. So you can, again, the questions are really the same, who pays. So you can, by the drop down, you can select that, select the location for the washers, quantity, what type of washers it is. Here it's really important to kind of select the right age or if they're Energy Star. And I'm just reiterating the fact, if you're really confused about how to make this selection, just click on how do I do it, and it's really easy to understand. You want to select which domestic hot water system. So if you had filled that in the previous screen, in the drop down, you can see the option. And this is exactly the point I was trying to make before. The tool draws information from the previous screen. And the last is what type of dryers you have. Say if in your property you have multiple washers and dryer systems, like some are Energy Star but some are not, then you can group them together and add another system. Now let's, again, if you're using the tool, you would click on kitchen appliances. But for now, let's look at the lighting screen. Here, again, I want to explain this by going back to the PowerPoint slide. So at this building, they had a mixed bag of lighting systems. There was no uniformity among the systems. They had a bunch of CFLs, T8s, T12s. They had incandescent, they have halogen, and whatnot. So if this is the case with you, then you would want to enter one or two systems in the EZ path and then move on to the further screens and enter all of these systems in the advanced path. The reason is in advanced path it's an Excel kind of system, so it's easy to enter multiple systems in Excel rather than clicking on the button called Add Another System and adding 40 or 50 lighting systems you have. So that's what here in the tool you can see they have 39 systems. So I would recommend just adding one or two here and then clicking on the next measure category called Motors and Controls. So for now, I'm going to skip to the last category in terms of data input. That is called as water conservation. Here you'll be entering data only for toilets. This is the last screen in terms of data entry, as well as the last screen for the EZ path. After this, you'll be taken to advanced path anyways. So here the questions are again the same. Who pays bills? Here owner pays for the water. You want to enter quantity correctly, its location correctly, and also the flow rate. This is kind of really important for your water savings calculations. Now again, for this, at times you can get this number directly looking at the toilets in the apartments or common areas. But if you don't see that, then you can click on how do I do it. And in the user guide, we have a section where by age, the flow rates are listed. So you can make a good guesstimate. So all our hard work is done. Now let's look at results. Here we have two options. So you can click on this button called Results All Measures, where you can view each and every recommendation for your systems. Or you can click on Report. So you don't want to look at everything. You just want to look at a few things that matches your criteria. Then you will be clicking on Report. I'm going to walk you through both of them, and first let's start with results. So here, again, you have two options. You can view this result by each of those measure categories. By that, I mean those 11 categories. Or you can view all of them together in a sheet, and that means it's uncategorized. So I like to view by measures. I'm clicking here. Now, before you can view your results, this is a very cool feature in the tool. It pops up an energy data confirmation screen. Think of it as a validation screen. So here you can see for each of the categories, you can see the consumption for them that is specific to your building. I'm looking at the refrigerator and freezer section. The data marked in green is for your building based on your inputs. And then the data in gray is average for the similar buildings. So at times, if the data varies significantly, it will flag them. Let's view this over here. In the water usage tab under clothes washer, you can see your data is marked red. That's because they vary significantly. You can see there is a huge gap between the red and the gray. Now, at this point, you can go to review inputs and make changes if you feel like, or if you think that's how my building is, you can move forward. And there is a third option. If you're not at all confident about your data, you can click on average for similar buildings and then move forward with the tool. Right now, I'm keeping as it is. So once you're done with all the review process, you can continue to results and reports. Here it's giving a little warning because for this building, and as we saw, the water data was marked in red. So it's just basically saying the water use for this building is really high, but that's fine. Okay, so when you click on this, it pops up a progress bar. It's basically telling you the tool is working. Don't be scared. And it will take us several minutes, depending on our computer speed, to show up the results. In my experience, it's usually 2 to 3 minutes. So while the tool does its work, we can take a little pause. And so here on the screen, you can see the results. They are in the actual tool itself. The results are in an Excel format. And as you can say by now, we are in the advanced path. Let's understand the results for HVAC, just as an example. So here you can see several columns called as location notes, measure number location. That's basically your inputs. And then you can see the other tab called include this measure, and you can change that. So for heating and cooling over here, so I'm highlighting these 3 ones. So the tool is recommending 3 different measures, and overall for each of the categories, the tool will recommend multiple measures, but it's up to you the ones you want to go with. So here, the tool is saying you can replace your baseboard heaters with mini-split heat pumps and also have programmable thermostats. Second option is you can just change it with a heat pump with no thermostat. And the third one is you don't want to spend more, right? So just keep it as it is, but add on programmable thermostat. And depending on the right, you can see all the different kind of analysis, savings estimates for each of the utilities, the total installation cost here, the total savings annually, what would be the payback period, useful life. So depending on your preference, you can select here yes, or you can change a no to a yes via a drop down. So you can change it as you want. Now, based on your yes and no, the tool will reflect the changes in a table which is at the extreme bottom. See, this is a long list of measures, right? So you have lots of options. Yep. So we can see the total impact summary table at the bottom. This is really compact. So for each of the categories, the tool will summarize all of the savings and tell you exactly how much you will be saving and how much your tenants will be saving. So for your say if you go with those heating and cooling upgrades, then you would be saving on the owner side $43,000, but your tenants would be saving more. So it depends again on what options you choose. So depending on our yes and no selection, these numbers will change. Now, if you're more of a visual person like me, then you would want to click on Results, Graph, and you can see the profiles for pre and post levels for each of the utilities. So here you can see pre-retrofit versus post-retrofit energy used by each of the categories. This is basically in the gray, you can see the pre-retrofit consumption, that is your existing building levels for each of them. And the green estimates are assuming that you would go with all those yes selected retrofits, and these are the estimated savings. Again, depending on your yes and no selection, these graphs will be updated. So now once you're done with all of these, you can either print them or export them to a fresh new Excel sheet. So let's go back to the results. Okay, so as I said, if you don't want to look at all of this, then just click on Reports. Here you have several report generation criteria options. Say my boss will only approve those upgrades which have a payback of 8 years. Then I will click on the payback option and put 8. And then you can click on OK, and again, those results would be updated. So you will be able to see only those results that would have a payback of 8 years or less. And you can choose that for several other options. Now, before showing you three powerful features of the tool, I want to quickly jump to the lighting screen in Advanced Path, as I had promised earlier. If you have a complex lighting system, then you would want to go in Advanced Path and enter all here. You can see it's easy to enter in Excel rather than clicking on the Add Another System button. And you can enter all this information about what kind of lights they are, what are the wattages, if you have any lighting controls for those lights. And this is basically all about the lighting screen. Now I want to show you the three very powerful features the tool has. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so and keep in mind these three features can be accessed only by going in the Advanced Path. So if you are a data person and you know all about your systems, you have good data at hand, and you are like, no, I want to use my own assumptions, not the tool assumptions, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to explain this by going to the clothes washer screen, again, that we had reviewed. And so if you know about your modified energy factor, it's really specific. It's an energy performance metric. The higher the number, the more efficient your clothes washers are. So the tool for this particular building is assuming MEF to be 2.43. But you are like, no, my clothes washer are not that great as the tool thinks. So you want to enter the new value that is 2.38. So let's see how that can be done in the tool. Okay, so you would go to the clothes washer screen. Here in Advanced Path, you can see there are several tables, and it's a kind of a classic Excel thing. So here you can see two tabs. There is minimum amount of data, and there is additional data to increase accuracy. Now, as you saw, MEF it's really a specific measure. So you want to click on additional data to increase accuracy, and go to your extreme right. And here you can see what I was saying. 2.43 is the tool assumption. And that's marked here in yellow under assumption source. So you want to enter that new number, so you will click on the EZ Retrofit assumptions, select user inputs, then click on the red button next to it that says clothes washer user inputs, and enter your new data here. You don't need to enter each and everything here. You can just enter the ones that you have. Otherwise, the tool will make its assumptions. So here I want to enter 2.38. After doing this, you'll go back to the clothes washer screen, and you can see again at the extreme right, it has taken the new MEF here. So that's how dynamic the tool is. I want to quickly go through the other two powerful functions. They are, and that's again in the PowerPoint, right? They are creating your own systems and changing cost assumptions. So say if you have this result, you work with your contractor, got the new bids, and decide that I want to put this information in the tool to reflect the new savings. So I'm going to explain this here for refrigerators. So at this building, they want to install, they want to replace all the old ones with the new Energy Star ones. And the tool here was suggesting that to do all that, you would have to spend $117,000. That is approximately $763 per refrigerator. But when they worked with the contractor, they found out that those refrigerators are eligible for a $100 rebate. That's cool. So their new per refrigerator cost is $663. And they want to see now, with this new cost, what the new savings will be for all of the utilities, as well as we're back in the tool. Then we will go to the kitchen appliances. That's where refrigerators are. You can see here they have refrigerators 154, and they're non-Energy Star. Now, if I want to enter the new cost, you would go right at the bottom under the table called Proposed Kitchen Appliances. That's what basically the tool is recommending. And you can see the installation cost here, as I was saying, is $117,000. But you want to put in your new cost. So you would go here under Assumption Source at the bottom. And here you can see it's typical Energy Star. But to view the new cost, you would click on Kitchen Appliances User Inputs. Again, you can see the similar kind of tables that we just saw a minute ago. You will enter your new system, your new refrigerators, under the custom tables. So I will quickly enter new refrigerators. And again, all of these you don't need to enter because the tool will make its own assumptions. If you have the data, then you can enter. Here I'm putting 663. Now let's go back to kitchen appliances. Down here. Okay, so here again you are on the assumption source, and you can see the new refrigerators here. So you would click here, and you can see your installation cost change from 117 to 102. And similarly, your savings, payback period, everything has changed. So I think that's really powerful about the tool. It is really dynamic. So now I'm going to turn it to Becky, and she can go over the two interesting case studies.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruti. And I can see that we have had some questions come in. So just to let you know, we will be addressing all the questions at the end, and there's still time to ask some questions. So for our case study, we're going to go through two properties where we've applied the EZ Retrofit tool. One is a 13-story, 238-unit property in Denver, Colorado. It was built back in 1971. So if you remember our scenarios, this is one of those old building scenarios. We ran the EZ Retrofit tool at this property and also worked with the local utility rebate provider, Energy Outreach Colorado, to do a retrofit at this property. So between the rebates and the property's reserves, we were able to replace the refrigerators, put in some LED lighting, and get two of the original boilers to this building. They were practically antiques. out of the basement and get some new energy efficient boilers in there just this past July. So based on this scope, we are projecting that the property will save 20% on its energy consumption and 22% on its utility costs. So you can see we're able to drive some really great savings using the tool. Another way you can actually use the tool is that maybe you're working in a program that requires you to get an energy audit from a contractor that's been selected by the program, but you maybe have some doubts about the information that you're getting and want to run a sanity check on that program results. So you can compare the EZ Retrofit tool's results with the audit report that you get from a third-party contractor. And we did this for a property in Massachusetts. One of the points of comparison is, what measures are recommended by the tool versus what measures are recommended by the energy audit. And you can see here there was a large amount of overlap. There were a couple of measures recommended by the auditor, which are things that the EZ Retrofit tool doesn't address. But in terms of the scope, it made up a pretty small portion of the savings and a pretty small portion of the cost, about 7% in both cases. So I would say we found that the scope recommendations were largely consistent. Another important point of comparison is how did the savings projections go? And this was an area where we want to talk a little bit about the lighting results, because that's where we found actually a very significant difference. The EZ Retrofit tool was suggesting savings that were about half of what the auditor was suggesting. If you look at EZ Retrofit and Audit 1, you can see here a big difference. And when we dug into why that was, we found that it was actually a problem with the audit report itself. The contractor had double counted all of the common area lighting, and that's what was driving that saving. So you can see there, they revised their results in Audit 2, and it came a little bit closer to the EZ Retrofit. We also brought in a contractor to get a third opinion, an estimate of what they would do for lighting. And so you can see, comparing the EZ Retrofit with that contractor's estimate, we were really very much in line with what they got as their lighting retrofit estimate. So this is just a couple of different ways that we've used the EZ Retrofit tool at actual properties in the field. We're coming towards the end of our webinar, so just to summarize, we do have a free tool available through the SAFE website. It's designed for non-technical users, but has many powerful features. It does take into account interactive effects, for example, between heating systems and lighting. It calibrates your results to the existing utility consumption of your building. It allocates savings between owners and tenants so that you can see kind of who's saving what and use that as part of your prioritization. It allows you to override some of the assumptions if you do have more detailed information available. It has some resources embedded right in the tool, the user guide and the checklist, and some other resources like more in-depth case studies like we just walked through are also available on the SAFE website. So the tool is free, it's available at no charge, and I think at this point in our presentation, we're going to go ahead and start responding to some of the questions that came in. If you have questions later on, you can always feel free to reach out to me or to Ruchi, and we'll be happy to talk more about the EZ Retrofit tool.
Okay, so I do see a question about properties and how to enter data if you have multiple buildings. So I believe I should have mentioned that earlier, that the tool runs and does calculations on a building by building basis. So say if you have a property with 2 buildings, then you would want to run the tool on one property and then separately on the other property. I mean, for a big property, it can be a little time consuming, but if you see other way, it is really efficient because you know exactly what needs to be done in building A or building B. The other question is, does the tool allow owners to compare water consumption and energy use intensity for buildings across portfolio? I really love this question. So our tool has a very modest benchmarking component. The purpose is not just benchmarking. It's about the next step. What do you do after benchmarking? So for this, I would say benchmarking tools are more equipped to do this kind of work, but not our tool. Say if you're using Energy Star Portfolio Manager across your portfolio, and you have several kinds of scores, so those, especially the ones who are performing, say, below 75, you might want to run the tool on them to see what's exactly happening in the tool, where I can make the most upgrades.
We got another question about whether our results have been compared to actual post-retrofit results, so comparing the projected savings with actual savings. And this is something that we're really excited to do. So that case study we just showed you, the boiler replacement just happened this month. We've had several other properties retrofitted, but we don't yet have a year of post-retrofit data. So the most we can say about that is that we've compared our projections to audit projections and found them in line. So we will be following up with some M&V on these properties that don't yet have data available.
Okay, the other question is also very interesting. It is if we can just enter water measures because they have a big footprint in California. I wish we could do that, but the tool, the intent of the tool is to look at the whole building. And as I had said earlier, it will draw information from the previous categories, like the domestic hot water systems. So you can do that, but it's not that effective.
Yeah, the best way if you wanted to do that, you will have to enter some HVAC systems in order to get to results. But in the advanced path, it will come up with those tables at the bottom for your water screens. If you have the HVAC and you have the water, it will give you results, not necessarily in the results screen, but inside the advanced path screen. We got another question in about how to handle properties if there are existing renewables on them. So I'm going to start off by saying that I hope your properties with renewables are already very efficient and that you've done that retrofit work before putting the renewables on. But there's always more opportunity for efficiency, so I appreciate that we want to use the EZ Retrofit tool there as well. And for that, I would say just to make sure when you're putting in your existing electric usage, that you don't just use your utility bill data, that you consider how much electricity you're getting from those solar panels or what your production is on the solar thermal side. Otherwise, the calibration and the savings estimates will be off. So getting that whole building electric usage in the benchmarking screen would be key. The tool does not provide recommendations about renewable energy. It is focused on efficiency in these 11 systems. But we certainly would encourage people to also talk to a solar provider and think about what those options might be.
I think we have covered majority of the questions. But if you have more questions, after you play with the tool, if you have more questions or any issues, definitely reach out to me, myself, or Rebecca Shaw.
Oh, and I do see one other question. There is a question here about the benchmarking process and the building in a similar area, whether it's an appropriate comparison to your building. So we are coming up on the end of the webinar. So what the tool is doing, it's using an airport data that's put in on the general characteristics screen and comparing that to model building data that's been developed from a HUD database from public housing. So there's a lot of detail on this in the user guide itself. If you pull up the user guide and look for the section on benchmarking, it will explain where our comparison data is coming from, and you can look at that data on the HUD website as well.
Okay, and we have this last question. It is about if you do not have reserves to pay for this retrofit, is there a source of funding to apply to? Becky, you want to take that?
The EZ Retrofit program does not have a source of funding for this, so the two areas that I might point you to in this case are looking to your local utility programs for what they can provide, and Desire USA, be sure to put the USA on that, is the URL where you can find information about utility rebates in your local area. And another recommendation is that if you don't have reserves right now, you might use this in your capital planning. So people have used the EZ Retrofit tool and the recommended measures from that tool to say, this is what I want to put into my capital plan. I'm going to start reserving for more efficient systems and put this in my plan. So it's also kind of an energy efficiency tool for capital planning.
And last but not the least, so the tool is free, and you will save on that one.
Yes. All right. So thank you for all of your wonderful questions. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.